if we become dependent on AI tools for creative output, our imaginations are going to get lazy and suffer. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Creative Mode. I'm your host, Annie Zomaya, lover of pop culture, entertainment, and 100% human creativity. This is Creative Mode. Today we're going to talk about the latest album from Florence and the Machine, Everybody Scream, a new album just announced from Charli XCX, and later on in the episode, AI-generated music and what that means for the music industry and creativity as a whole. Before we jump in, I do want to mention that the first segment of this episode briefly talks about pregnancy loss, so do take care while listening. And if you need to skip to the next section, you can do that as well. Everybody Scream is the brand new album from Florence and the Machine. It was released on Halloween of this year, which I think was genius in itself, especially after listening to it. The overall vibe is the witchy, ethereal, primal sound that Florence and the Machine is kind of already known for. What I especially love about this album, though, is the ambient sounds that you hear throughout the album. It made it really immersive with howling, screaming, and just these feral sounds of nature. And I think that's part of what makes the release so timely and perfect for this season of fall transitioning into winter. And I learned that a lot of the inspiration for this album came from Florence Welch's experience with an ectopic pregnancy and a miscarriage. This actually happened in 2023 while on tour, and Florence Welch started experiencing severe internal bleeding while she was on stage performing, and she ended up having an emergency surgery that saved her life, and of course she lost the pregnancy. But this raw experience and the physical and emotional pain of it is heard all throughout the album, and I think that is really what gives it this haunting quality that it has. So you have these ambient sounds of nature, screaming, it's primal, it's ethereal, and it's also really honest, heartbreakingly honest. She's literally bleeding on stage and putting that into this album. In the title track, Everybody Scream, she sings about finding freedom and release and just being able to express herself wholly as she is while she's performing. And it has the lines, "Here I don't have to be quiet, I don't have to be kind, extraordinary, normal, all at the same time." I can just imagine the rush. And especially, having the career history that she's had and experiencing this pretty recent trauma, I can see how performing is this sanctuary for her, even if she does have kind of a tumultuous relationship with fame. But basically what I get from the song is that the stage is her sanctuary. That's where she can be fully herself and really tap into the divine feminine, which we also kind of hear as a theme throughout this album. My favorite track is Sympathy Magic, and it's an upbeat, almost a dance beat, not quite. And the sound kind of has Cranberries vibes to me, so I absolutely love that. I've also seen comments from people online saying that they can really connect the lyrics to their own experiences with religious trauma. And I can identify with that. I think a lot of people, especially women who grew up with conservative religious families, had this expectation placed on them that you need to be pure, you need to be good, you need to be righteous and holy. If you follow these rules, everything's gonna work out for you. And little did we know, that's not how it works. That is not the case. You kind of grow up and you learn that one way or another. And so I think a lot of people can kind of resonate with that too. You know what? I'm not gonna try to be worthy of anything anymore. I'm just gonna be myself. All right, so finally, I want to skip towards the end of the album to a track called You Can Have It All. This one really dives head first into the experience of grief and burial in the aftermath of loss. She sings, "Dug a hole in the garden and buried a scream, and from it grew a bright red tree, shining with jagged leaves, and when the wind blows, you can hear it." And it kind of, then they interpolate that scream, that ambient scream sound again. And those lines really captured something in me that I wouldn't have been able to express, I think, but that I can definitely feel. There's this sense of longing and despair from loss and grief, and even when healing comes, there's always something that remains, right? So this imagery of being on your knees in the dirt, burying a part of yourself in a garden, and a garden is where we bring life into the world, right? That's where things are meant to grow, and it's beautiful. But then you're burying a part of yourself there, and then watching something rise from that, I just thought that was really powerful, and something to really, kind of think about. The symbolism of the tree and the red leaves, I don't know, I didn't dig too deep into that, but I think that's definitely something that is worth exploring. So to sum it up, I think this album is one of the best releases of the year, in my opinion. Even with the themes of burial and grief, the upbeat tracks keep it from sounding like just another sad girl autumn album. We love those, but this is not that. I think while there is sadness in there, and certainly in the story of this album, overall I think it's a celebration of being a human, being a woman, and being able to rise up. More exciting news, a brand new headline I just saw today. Charli XCX is creatively pregnant with her new album, Wuthering Heights, which is due February 13th, 2026. This is an album that she's creating for the newest adaptation of the Emily Bronte novel, Wuthering Heights. And she actually wrote about it on Substack, where she likens the process of creating and releasing an album to giving birth. So I'll read just a little bit of that, and then I'll link to the full Substack article in the show notes. Charli writes, I find when there's such an influx of joy and passion and vitality in creating an album, the songs, the visual language, the packaging, the live show, the performance of the whole thing, there is naturally a feeling of emptiness that follows once it's out in the world. Perhaps the giving birth analogy applies, but I've never done that, so I wouldn't really know. In my mind, you get pregnant, you grow the baby, you carry the baby, you give birth to the baby, people want to meet the baby, and then you have to spend your time keeping the baby alive and caring for it eternally. But what if birthing the baby in part makes you lose your uniquely intimate connection to it and therefore changes your purpose slightly? What if you don't want your entire life to be about one damn baby? Obviously, to most people, a baby is not the same as an album, but to me, it kind of is. Creating art is my one true love that I will never desert, and no matter how rough things get, I'll always be there standing by its side. Clearly, I'm not ready to be a mother. And then she goes on to talk about her experience with her last album, Brat, and how that kind of went out into the world and became something much bigger than she ever imagined. And she felt this pressure to make the most of it and really get as much out of it as she could, even though she was kind of ready to move on because it was a project that for her had been going on for years by the time it was released. So I'm really excited. I'm a fan of Charli's music, and she did just release a new single, which is going to be featured on the album, I believe. The opening track on Wuthering Heights will be House, which is a recent collaboration with the co-founder of Velvet Underground, John Cale, and that is actually out right now. You can watch the music video on YouTube. So I'm excited to see what it's about, and I've actually never read Wuthering Heights, so maybe I'll have to do that over the winter before this album and this movie come out. So we have talked about pregnancy, we've talked about life, death, birth, bleeding, burial, all very human, or at least living organism experiences. It begs the question, can you take these very real human experiences, feed them to a virtual machine, and call the output music? Last week I saw a headline about an AI singer who not only was charting on Billboard for the first time, but had received a multi-million-dollar record deal. This was a singer that I had never heard of before, and to my knowledge had not heard their music before. I looked into it, and there is a real person behind this AI figure called Janaya Monáe, who is writing poetry and claims to be writing the lyrics to these songs and putting them into an AI software that generates a fully developed and produced song. I'm going to read a little bit of the Apple Music description for this singer. Zanaya Monet is an AI figure presented as a contemporary R&B vocalist in the highly expressive, church-bred, down-to-earth vein of Keisha Cole, K. Michelle, and Money Long. Designed by Talisha Nikki Jones, a poet from Mississippi, Monet's recordings are a synthesis of Jones' lyrics in a generative artificial intelligence music creation program. That's a lot. So we're calling this music. We are putting it on the Billboard charts. We're giving it a multi-million-dollar record deal. How far does this go? Will it be considered for a Grammy at some point? And the bigger question is, what does this mean for the music industry as a whole? To me, I feel like this is an unfair shortcut, knowing that there are so many talented artists out there who have worked so hard to learn how to make music, to write songs, to hone their craft and share it with the world, seeing something that is not real, singing about spirituality and God and church and relationships. Like, an AI can't actually experience any of those things. So even if the lyrics are coming from a real human experience, there's no soul behind the performance. And to me, that's what sets it apart in a way that I don't want to give it my time and attention. I think it's our job as not only creatives, but as consumers to be mindful of how we interact with this type of content. I personally don't believe it deserves my attention. I would rather give my time and attention to human artists, human-generated songs, songs that are produced from a human and performed by a human who can, at some level, actually express and relate to the experiences behind the music. And also, if we become dependent on AI tools for creative output, our imaginations are going to get lazy and suffer. And that has consequences that are beyond what I can talk about in one episode. So that's just something that I wanted to bring up, and part of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast. I feel like we are bombarded on the daily with news and updates about generative AI. I feel like it's displacing a lot of creative work and creative talent, and that worries me. I think that has very deep, long-standing consequences if we are not very careful about how much power and attention we give to this kind of content. I also think the beauty of music is in the process of creating the music. Whether you are a singer-songwriter who does everything from start to finish to produce your own music, or you're working collaboratively with a team of talented individuals, there is a messiness, there is a process, there is a story that gives us music worth listening to that I don't think AI can replace. That's my personal opinion. No hate to the person behind this AI figure at all. This is a creative outlet for them, and they found a way to make money from it. No hate to them. But I do want us to think very critically about how much power we give this. So even me talking about it today is giving it some form of legitimacy. And the other aspect of this that cannot be ignored is, even in the Apple Music description, it says that this has been stylized based on performers like Keisha Cole, K. Michelle. And then down below, the similar artists included Cardi B, SZA, and other big name people that have their own discography, their own history of making music and sharing it with the world. So is this a counterfeit of that? Are these real life artists being compensated for their likeness and their sound being used for AI generated music? And another thing that I saw just yesterday is that Michael Caine and Matthew McConaughey have actually licensed the use of their voice to an AI company called 11 Labs. So this is a little bit different. What does it mean when a celebrity gives an AI company the rights to use their voice for AI-generated content? They're using it a little bit differently. So Michael Caine's voice will be used to read text off of a screen to you on your device, and Matthew McConaughey wants his voice to be able to be translated into other languages. So that's really interesting. That sounds a little bit different to me because, first of all, the human themselves is saying, yeah, you can use my voice, for a price for this specific use in this specific context. So is that different than what we're talking about with generating AI music? I'm really curious to know what you think. AI obviously does have a lot of capability to be a tool. I think we just need to be mindful of how we use it. That's all I have for you this week. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe so you won't miss a beat. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you again next week.